Alright, so it's been 2 weeks since I've uploaded my first video. If you haven't watch that first because it gives you the full information about what I'm talking about in this video. This is my second update about getting back on the board at 35. I used to skate when I was a teenager, from around 14, 15 until I was 18. Compared to some of the guys who I was skating with back then, I wasn't as smooth and stylish as a lot of them. And there are a few reasons, and there is a reason that things are looking a bit better now, even though it's very early on. And I think those reasons are important, so I want to share that in this video, the knowledge that I've gathered over the past 2.5 months, I think, that I've been skateboarding. Well, the first one is pretty easy. I'm an old guy now, and that's why my channel is called Dad Skating. I'm skating with my kid a lot. Most of the time he's around there with me, with either a scooter or a tricycle. And next to wanting to set a good example, I also wanted to make it a bit easier on myself. So I'm wearing protection, I'm wearing my helmet, I'm wearing pads, wrist, elbow and knee most of the time. Lately I've been skating a bit more with only wrist pads. I'm a guitar player, so I don't want to risk hurting my hands or wrists. And that's also because I'm feeling a bit more confident. But starting out skating again and wearing protective gear actually makes it a lot easier because it gives you more confidence. You know, you are protected when you fall, and I actually fell in the skate park a few times trying stuff that I wasn't completely comfortable with, you know, making the next step. It was easier to commit to trying new things wearing protective gear, but also if I wouldn't have been wearing protective gear, I'm pretty sure I would have hurt myself a lot more than I did wearing the protective gear. So that's point one, but that isn't even the biggest point yet. I still haven't filmed anything skating in the skate park yet, and that has a few reasons. The first of which, I'm still shit at the skate park. I cannot do anything really special there at the moment. I never was good riding skate parks when I was a teenager. I never liked it. I always felt self-conscious because there were a lot of people around, and I still have that, especially now that I am actually starting again and there are a lot of kids who can skate a lot better and are a lot younger. But now back to the reasons that I think I look a bit better skating now and things are going a bit easier. And one of the big reasons is I always pushed Mongo as a teenager. I never got rid of that habit, and once I started again, I think after my first week back at skateboarding, I committed to learning to push regular, and it's been difficult. It's still a bit difficult sometimes, but it feels a bit more natural at this point. But it actually makes a big difference because you have your front foot set up a lot easier, and yeah, it's just more practical and more smooth to push regular. But I'm still committing to that, but it still needs some work, but I think it's getting better. But I think the biggest reason and the biggest change is how the skateboard gear has changed. Back when I was skating as a teenager in the mid-2000s, deck shapes were a lot smaller, and I actually didn't know what I was riding. I wasn't thinking about it. The internet wasn't such a big thing, so there wasn't as much information about it, and I just tried to skate what everybody else was skating, but I was a lot taller than everybody else, so those decks were way too small for me all the time. When I first started again at the very end of March, I just grabbed my old board out of the garage, and that was the last board I skated with a lot of cheap or no-name brand stuff. But the last time I skated it, back when I was a teenager, I actually liked that setup, and it wasn't bad when I started out. But when I actually started reading about stuff on the internet, because you know, you're skating again for 1 week and you're really enjoying it, and you feel committed to doing it, really getting back into it again. I started looking online, and it turns out that deck shapes have become a lot bigger. The standard size has become a lot bigger. So yeah, I thought it might be a good idea to try that. And I wanted to do the sensible thing and get a complete board that was not too expensive, because I was just getting back into it, but I really wanted to try a bigger deck shape because that's the norm at this point in time, as opposed to back when I was skating as a teenager. And I just got a house brand deck with house brand trucks and wheels and bearings. But I read online that they're actually pretty okay to begin with, and they were actually pretty okay to begin with. But it wasn't, or it is an 8.5 inch deck. I think it's just beneath 32 inches long, with a 14.38 inch wheelbase. And it seemed, I mean, it was a big step up. I think the no-name setup I had was a 7.7 or 7.75 deck, so it's a big step. But I wanted to take it because I really wanted to feel the difference, and the difference is huge. There's a lot more stability when landing. One of the issues I had back as a teenager when I was skating is that my trucks were always way too tight, and I needed that because the decks were way too small for me. So that brings an upside, but also a big downside. One of the downsides being that I always broke my kingpins. Nobody could skate my setup because it was way too tight for anybody else, and I couldn't skate anybody else's setup because it was way too loose for me. But with the bigger deck, I immediately felt that I could set my trucks a lot looser. So I have a bigger surface area for my feet. The trucks are a lot looser, and that makes things so much easier than it did back then. And I think that helped me really progress a lot faster getting back into skateboarding. Because I think the first 2 months getting back into skateboarding at 35 after not skating for 18 years actually felt like it went pretty fast and smooth for those first 2 months. And I think the deck and the not Mongo pushing have a lot to do with that. And also I'm more mature, more confident. But the deck made a big difference because it's a lot more stable to have a bigger deck and looser trucks. Because skateboarding isn't like riding a bike. If you don't do it for 18 years, you have to practically start all over again. But I actually went pretty fast because the muscle memory is coming back a lot faster because I've done it all before. And I just have to find the way I did it back then. But once things are going again, I'm noticing it gets back quicker than I thought. Although I have to say, those first 2 months went fast, and I'm stalling a bit more lately. But it also has to do with the fact that I was ill for, I think, 2 weeks in a row at least. And the weather was really bad, so I couldn't go skate as much as I wanted to. I also went on vacation. But back to the deck and setup discussion. Yeah, I've been going a bit through the madness lately, and that seems silly because I'm just getting back into skateboarding. But I think I started at the right time because there were a lot of spring sales, which is both good and bad. It started with shoes. I didn't want to ruin my normal shoes. At the moment I'm using the vulcanized shoes when I'm in the skate park because they feel nice for cruising through the skate park. And when I'm actually trying to do some more street stuff, I'm wearing cup soles. And I think that's what I'll be doing for the upcoming time. But after skating the complete board for about a month and a half, I wanted something a bit nicer, not to have directly, but the spring sale was still going on, and I thought if I get some of the nicer gear that I actually want down the road, I might as well get it now because it's a bit cheaper when I get it now. And I wanted to use it as a reward for myself if I got good enough, if I actually made a checklist of things I wanted to be able to do until I could skate the nice setup. But one thing I noticed once I put the Thunder trucks on the bigger toy machine deck, the 8.5 with a 14.5 wheelbase, was that my pop was gone. And I started thinking about wheelbase and the angle and the whole thing, and I was breaking my head a bit over that. But it actually felt really nice to ride. It was really stable and responsive, and I think it's the nicest ride I've ever had on a skateboard. But of course, if you can't ollie for shit, that doesn't mean a lot. So that was actually pretty annoying. So for the session I had today, I brought 3 boards. I did notice that on the old setup, on the small deck, that it was easier to pop my ollie, and that's, I think, probably because of the shorter wheelbase and because I'm used to that, but it was a lot less comfortable to land that. And with the other 2 setups, it actually didn't make a big difference. I thought the main thing that I had to do is just all the over and on some things, and then you have to commit to something and then it will come back, and it actually worked out that way. What I've also been doing lately, I've been practicing with also an old setup that I found in the garage. It's also a small deck, it's a girl deck. I'm not sure what the measurements are, I didn't measure it and I really don't remember because I didn't pay attention to any of that stuff back in the day. But it has two different sets of trucks on them. There's Thunders on one side and there I believe is Phantom trucks on the other side. So I just probably threw it together because that's what I had left back when I made that setup. But the Phantom truck is actually broken. The wheels are totally gone, but I just grabbed it out of the garage when I found it because it was a shit setup, but it was good enough to use on the grass here to practice some flat ground flip tricks. But I'm actually almost consistently landing kick flips with that setup. I can do 360 shove-its. I'm landing switch or nollie flips a bit more often, all of which I'm actually not landing at all using my regular setup now on actual flat ground when I'm not on the grass. So I have to work on that a bit more. But I've been mostly working on my board slides with the rail that I made. I really wanted to practice landing regular, so not to fakie. I've been doing to fakie mostly back in the day, so I think it's still muscle memory that's there that I'm trying to land it to fakie. But it also has to do with the fact I actually made the rail a bit too low, probably because I was just getting back into it and because I was a pussy about it. But the downside of that, I have some stabilizer bars at both ends, and because it's actually pretty low, if I try to land regular, I'm getting stuck behind the stabilizer bar, and if I go to fakie, I end out a bit more because I turn a bit further, and it's a bit easier, but it's also not as easy as it should be. So I think the only solution is to make the grind rail that I made, I think at least double as high, to make it a bit easier for myself. Because I've really been breaking myself over that thing, because I think I can land them consistently if the rail makes it a bit easier for me. But one of the last sessions I did before I became ill and before I went on vacation, I was breaking my bones over that rail and not being able to land the way I wanted to. I'm always getting stuck on the end there, and it's because I'm not going fast enough and because it's a bit too low. Maybe I need to grind it longer so I have more time to rewire my brain, because that's basically the problem. I'm just programmed to always go to fakie. So I haven't been skating as much as I should, and I might have been thinking and dabbling a bit too much in the skateboarding gear than I should, especially at this stage of my comeback into skateboarding. But I think those things are fun. That's also how I'm with my guitar gear. I'm really sensitive to how everything feels and responds to what I'm doing, and I think that's translating to my skateboarding a bit. But I will end off with the footage that I shot today, because today was my first session, my first real session back on the board in 2 weeks, and I wanted to do a bit more lines, you know, combine the things that I've been doing before, and I wanted to try out something new. So you might notice that the upcoming footage looks a bit different, and if you wonder what that's all about, stay tuned for my next video. Hey, Botbeer.
not that big.
So, let's go, Oliver.
Okay, brother.
En nu is het afgebroken, dus dat is ook wel.
Oh. Oeh ja, dat is over een angel.
That brings me to one last reason why my footage didn't seem as smooth and seem rather sloppy a lot of the times back in the day. But one of the other reasons that I often had sloppy footage back in the day, because I was usually the guy filming everybody else, and when it came time to film something for me, I always felt a bit self-conscious and impatient doing things. So I went with the take that was okay, because I didn't want anybody else who had to be filming me taking a lot of time, you know, for me to have 10 or 15 or 20 tries to actually get something. So if I got a take that was okay, I actually went with that one, and that's what I did today when I was filming with my wife, because we also had our kid there. We also had to watch him, and I didn't want to bother her with having to film me, you know, a lot of tries. And that's something I have to get used to or over. Maybe I just have to become good enough to not need a lot of tries for the things I'm doing. But that's also a big reason why things can look sloppy if you just go for the take that is okay, but not actually good. So that's something I have to work on in multiple aspects. But more about that in my next video.